Okay guys, behind us right now we have a brand new Mitsubishi Triton 2022 model, and we're going to install one of our tub kits into the rear of this vehicle. So these are designed to fit the tub from 2017 up to the current model. So this is the tub kit in front of us now. It's a steel box, powder coated, made by TLR products locally. And you'll see we've got the Redarc charger on one end with a single socket, and then we flip it to the other side. We've got your choice of two sockets there, and also an Anderson for solar input directly to the Redarc. So let's drop the tailgate now, show you where this is designed to be located, and show you how to get it into your Mitsubishi Triton. Okay guys, so this is the approximate location of our tub kit. It's designed to go in this specific spot, be reinforced from underneath to support the weight of that battery so that we don't get any cracking of the tub. It's designed with ribs on the bottom to go over the channels in the Mitsubishi tub so that it's weighted on the top of the ribs and on the bottom of the ribs. So it is designed to go specifically in this spot, and it does require that we take a cut out of the tub liner to make way for our battery to sit right down against the tub floor and also back against the tub wall. So the first step will be to make that cut so that we can sit it into position, but we'll quickly run through what's included in the kit. If I take the lid off, we've got a pack full of all of our instructions for the Redarc charger, the tub kit, which we'll use that one to as a guide of how to get the tub in the actual box. All the cable ties and fittings, fuses, and the stuff that we require for the installation. Next thing we'll move out of the way now is our main harness that runs up towards the main battery. So we'll show you how to install that. We've then got our accessory harness sockets, fuses to connect to the battery to power up our sockets on each end. We've got a main fuse holder that goes up the front for the battery, and our main cables to connect to the auxiliary battery, which include the hold down clamp to hold the battery into position. So that will lock the battery down. Okay, so the first step is to take our cut out of the tub liner, and you'll notice the TLR instructions are included in the kit. So the first step that we want to do, and you'll see it's pictured in these photos here, is to move our battery box 260mm back from the tailgate. So to do that, we'll close the tailgate, measure the 260mm from the tailgate to this panel of the box, so 260 from there to there, and that's the location that we want to mark for our box. So let's shut the tailgate now. And with a tape measure, going from that flat surface on the back of the tub right on the edge of the tailgate to here, and we've got it right on 260. So 260 to the wall of the tub. Okay, so now that our tub is sitting 260mm back, we can make a mark on this edge. So what I'm going to do first is mark the back edges, so this edge and this back edge here. What I'm not going to do is mark this front edge yet. So the reason for that is that once we take a cut out of the floor, I'm going to cut the front edge a long way back, maybe back on this rib, because the tub is designed to fit against the sidewall as well. So naturally that's going to go that way. If we cut there, we'd have a massive gap at the end. So we're going to cut way back for the side bit. So we've marked our front and back. We also want to mark up to about this rib here, this height here. So we want to allow for this to sit back against the sidewall as well. So I'm just going to take a mark up here. Same on the back, I'll just get a mark. And then at this point we can remove our box out of position. See our marks here. Now I'm going to take a cut through this back edge for starters. We may need to come further this way, but we can always take more off. Okay, so now from our marks that we put on this rib, I'm just going to draw a line across to the side wall. Same back here. This little mark. Draw back to the side wall. And then I'm going to go up as well to the marks I put on this back edge. Give ourselves a nice straight edge. Okay, and always good to double check, double and triple check before we actually take a cut. So I'm just going to sit that back in. So that looks good. So now we're ready to take our initial cut, and initially I'm going to cut on the back of this rib, even though our battery box is sitting out here, and we'll just see how it sits back into there and then take more as we need it. But we've got our sides right, so we know that that's not going to change, so we can cut those. And I'll cut up to about here for starters, and once again I can always take more if we need to. Now, to do this job, a nibbler tool is probably the way to go. If you don't have that, you may have to use a sharp blade or a hacksaw, try and pull it away. Another suggestion before we actually take the cut is just to lift this tub. So I'm just going to use something, bit of plastic that we've got laying around. What I'm going to do is lift this tub liner off the floor so that while we make the cut, we're not going against the metal of the body. So we can cut, and we've got a large gap. I can actually fit my hand under there now. Okay, so let's take the cut. Okay, so now that we've taken our initial cut out, we can sit the tub into place and just mark a bit more of what we need. So I'm going to make a bit more of a cut for these cables. So we want them to go right in there. So I'll take that much out, and I'm going to want to come up a little bit higher. Take another cut about here. Mark the same on the back edge. So I'm going to take away this bit for our cable. I'm going to draw another line across here. We'll take another cut. Once we get it all the way towards the back edge and sitting flush against that back edge of the tub, that's when we know exactly where we need to cut on the front edge. So that'll be our last step, and then we should get it nice and flush. So let's go and make another cut now. Okay, let's sit our tub back into position, see how we've gone. So I still need to go just a little bit off the back edge. I'm just going to remark that. It is sitting in there a little bit further now. But this should be the last cut on the back edge. We know exactly where we need to be. I'll mark that again. Take one more cut here. Okay, so that's sitting nicely in against the sidewall. We can see there, it's disappeared right inside the tub liner. We've got it sitting in flush on this edge and flush on the back edge. So if I push against that with my finger quite tightly, I can see it's going to line up right on the front edge of this lip. So that's where I'm going to mark to take my cut. Just put a little mark there for now. Okay, we'll sit our tub back into position. There we go, it's with a push that's sat right in there, flush. So what I'm going to do is remove that tub now, the tub kit, just clean up our edges, our plastic edges, clean up any debris we've left in there, and then we can go ahead to the second part of the install. Right, so just run around the edge now just to clean off some of those burrs. Once we've got that nice and neat, just a little clean up. Okay, so that's probably the most fiddly part of our install. And obviously if you don't have a tub liner in your vehicle, that's going to be much easier. The box will just sit into place. So we've shown you the most difficult method, and that's when you've got a tub liner, we have to cut it out. But you can see our box is sitting nicely in position now. So the next step is to remove our lid, leave our box in position, and just get our cabling out the way. We'll just sit it all aside for now. Place all of our accessories aside, and you'll see that we've got 4 hole locations in the tub here. Two on the back end, 2 on the front end. So what we need to do now is just mark those with a permanent marker. So I'm just going to jump in there, mark those. Now these are the holes we need to drill for our bracing supports underneath. So all we're looking to do right now is mark them, then we'll pull the box away, like so, and then we can drill these holes. Okay, so now we want to drill our holes through the tub floor. So I've got a pilot drill here, so a bit smaller, but we're going to go up to an 8.5mm drill bit in the end. So I'm going to do a small one first. Very important that before you drill, you check underneath. There's nothing there originally, but if anything's been mounted there, we definitely want to make sure that we're free. So I've been under there, I can see that there's nothing in the location, but definitely double check your vehicle before we drill. So just looking to drill in the center of these holes now. Before those shavings escape from us, we'll just clean them up. So now that we've done our pilot holes, we can move up to our 8.5mm drill bit. Clean those shavings again. Okay, so you can see this one's got a lot of holes in the tub floor. It had a previous tie down mechanism mounted here, which we had to get rid of. So yours probably won't have these holes. Probably you're just going to have 4 holes at this point. But yeah, this one had some other accessories that had already been mounted in this spot. Okay, so I'm just going to jump underneath and spray these holes from underneath the vehicle with some paint, just to make sure that we don't have any bare metal edges. Okay, so now that we've rust-proofed our holes, we can sit our box back into position and mount those bolts all the way through. Okay, for this next step, you may need 2 people. So what we're going to do is place our bolts that are included in the kit here. You'll see our bag of fixings. But what we need to do is place these 4 bolts through from the top and then attach them from the bottom using our bracing plates. So I'll open up our pack now. So we're looking for these 8mm bolts and all the nuts and washers out of our pack. So firstly, our 4 bolts, we'll leave our nuts and washers off. Our 4 bolts are going to go through from the top. So I'm just going to place those through the holes here. Through our 4 holes that we just drilled. And then our bracing plates and our 4 nuts and washers go underneath the vehicle. So we'll need a hand with one person holding the bolts from the top, while a second person lays underneath and does them up. Okay, so I'm just going to jump underneath. So while underneath, the first thing we're going to put over each set of 2 bolts is our bracing plate. Put that into position. Then a flat washer, and then a nylock nut. And now we'll do that up securely. Okay, so I'll just show you underneath here exactly what we're doing. So you can see we've installed that one brace plate. Now I'll just show you what we're doing to install the second one. So the brace plate first. Sitting there. Then a flat washer and a nylock nut. Flat washer and a nylock, and initially I'm just going to do them finger tight. And our second one, flat washer, nylock nut. And once they're finger tight, we can go ahead and secure them. Okay, so we've completed step 1. We've securely mounted our battery box into positions. So now we're moving on to step 2, and that's routing our electrical harness towards the front of the vehicle. So you'll see that's our long 7-meter lead, main battery marked on the end there. So what we need to do with this one is to get it out of the tub and down to the chassis rail, where we'll follow the chassis rail up into the engine bay. Now, so the way we do that with our tub walls is our tub has an inner wall, so this wall that we can see here, and then obviously the exterior wall of the vehicle, so the outside edge. Those panels are sitting side by side, and we want to run our cable in between the 2. The way we do that is if we reach just up into this left-hand corner of the tub, there is actually a hole that I can get my fingers over. It's like a lip where the inner wall doesn't meet the outer wall, so there's a gap there. We can put our cable through and it'll just naturally fall down with gravity outside down near the chassis rail. So what I'm going to do, it's about that far in. I reach my hand in. Obviously this vehicle has a roller shutter, which is making it a little bit more difficult. If you don't have a roller shutter, we'd just be able to see that location, but I can still feel it here. So what I'm going to do is push this cable through there with my hand, find that spot, and that cable's through there now, through that hole, pushing a bit of excess through. So that's as far as it's going to go now. It's just stopped there. So what I'll do is lay underneath, we'll find that cable and pull it through. And to prepare for that, to get out of the tub, we're going to have to just release this plastic inner guard from the wheel arch. So our cables are going to come down in between the tub liners, so the outer wall and the inner wall of the tub. So we're starting to work in a dark area, so I'm just going to use a LED headlight, might be handy. So firstly we're going to remove these 3 Phillips head screws. So using a screwdriver, we're just removing these clips here. We basically just want to give ourselves access in behind this plastic panel. So keeping these screws, release them. Now the next thing with a flat blade screwdriver is we've just got some plastic clips in here. So you'll notice one there, the back of the wheel, and one up against the tub wall. So with a flat blade screwdriver, if I get in behind there, I can just pop that in a bit out, and that will release that plastic clip. So same with this one. Just try and pry that middle piece out. Like so, and we've released that clip. So now you can see we've freed that up a lot, so we can get access in behind there. We don't have to fully remove this, we just need to be able to lay underneath there, get our hands up, see our cable, and be able to grab our cable from the top and pull it down. If we lay in under here, I'll see if I can show you exactly where we're looking to grab. So we've released our inner plastic guard from the back of the wheel. And if we look up here, if I just pry this away, so we're looking up at all the fuel lines, fuel filler lines up there, reaching right up past those with my hand. Hopefully you can see them. So I'm reaching right up past those, and I can actually see my cable. So yeah, I've got a hold of my cable there now. I can pull it, but it is a little bit stuck from the inside. So this job would be handy with 2 people too, one person feeding from inside the tub and the other one pulling here. But now that I've got it and I've pulled a bit through, I might be able to thread some more from inside the tub. Okay, so jumping back inside the tub now, I'm going to try and feed a little bit more through. So a bit's gone through. But it has stopped there again, so I'll just have to lay underneath and pull a bit more. Okay, but now it's coming easy. So I've done that on my own. There's my cable. I can really just pull that whole amount through now. Okay, so now that we've got our cable out of the tub and to underneath the vehicle, what we want to do now is secure our harness, because we want to make sure that we've got the right amount of cable in the tub. We don't want to pull too much so that this is really tight. So it's a good time to secure this harness. And this may change depending on whether you've got a roller shutter or not, where you can secure to. But I'm going to secure to the mounts of the roller shutter under here. So I'm going to bring my cable right up, and our lid will cover that. I'm going to throw a tie through here. Okay, so I've got the cable tie through that mount. Now that's going to ensure we have the right length going up to the top. And then I've got another mount here that I can follow the same process on. Okay, now that we've secured our harness inside the tub, we've followed it through there, we know we have the right length, we can go to where we've got the harness out down near the chassis rail, in between where the tub meets the canopy, and we can start securing our harness all the way up to the engine bay. Okay, so we're just laying under the vehicle now. We've got our rear tyre here. This is the plastic panel that we removed behind the wheel arch, and this is where our cable has come down. So we're lucky on the Triton, we've got a lot of electrical cables already running the entire length of the vehicle. So we've got a lot that we can cable tie to, so it's quite easy. So by finding the end of our cable will be our first step. So what we want to do is where our cable comes out on this plastic, I'm going to go over top of the chassis rail. So we've got our fuel tank, this is our fuel tank position here. And in between the fuel tank and the chassis rail, you can see these fuel lines. Right above that is our electrical harness. So I'm just going to route it towards the front, following that electrical harness with plans to cable tie to it. Okay, so you can see our electrical harness here from Mitsubishi. This is out front of our fuel tank now, so we've just followed the same electrical harness, goes on top of the chassis rail beside the fuel tank there. So I'm just pulling our cable through, making sure that we're following this electrical harness all the way to the front. Our next harness is just, we've got a cable here, so this is our handbrake cable through the floor, so we can follow that for our next little step. And now, using the cable ties supplied in the kit, we're going to start cable tying from basically our rear wheel where we came down to the electrical harness in between the chassis rail and the fuel tank. And we're just going to cable tie around that electrical harness and around our harness, and just continue to do that, making our way towards the front, making sure that our harness is secure and not going to rub on anything. Now we can cut our cable tie ends off. That's got us up to where that harness goes into the floor of the vehicle. So our location now is we're right behind the front wheel. So we've come across this cross member that goes under the transmission. So what we want to do now, we want to be careful of our front tail shaft. We want to keep away from that, and not every model is going to have this one. This one already has an electrical harness that I can continue to follow up over the chassis rail. If you don't have that, we can secure to these plastic clips that hold our fuel lines. So we can cable tie around the plastic and hold our harness in place there, and then just feed our harness straight up into the engine bay. And in this particular case, I'm going to secure to that harness that's already there. Or using some of the big cable ties that we'll supply in the kit, you can actually just go straight around the whole chassis rail. So they'll be included in the kit too. Big chassis rails that you can just, big cable ties that you can just go right around the chassis rail and secure that to the top of the chassis rail if you've got nothing else to secure to. So now that I'm basically at the back of the firewall, I'm going to thread my cable up into the engine bay, feed as much as I can through, and then I should be able to find it in the engine bay. Okay, so now that our harness is up in the engine bay, we're going to continue to cable tie. Got our white clips that we can cable tie to. I'm going to follow this harness that's already there. We can now come around to our main harness here, we can see. I'm going to cable tie to this accessory, existing electrical cable, and do a little swivel around there to the Mitsubishi harness, the electrical harness here. Cable tie to that. And now we'll just cut our cable tie ends off. So now that we've finished routing our electrical cable to the front, we just need to reinstall our plastic shroud here. So I'm going to start with our plastic clips. You'll notice we've just pulled them out so the center bit is sticking up, proud. So what we want to do is put that back into the hole. And once we get those 4 feet back in the hole, it's just a matter of pushing that back flush and it locks it into position. So you remember we had 2 of those. Find the second hole, lock that into position. Make sure our plastic clips line up with those 3 holes, and they were 3 Phillips head screws. So we're just going to reinstall those. Okay, so now it's time to make our electrical connections in the rear. We're going to place our battery into the tray. So what we want to do is just get our electrical harnesses out the way to make room for our battery. So I'm going to sit these just out of our way. Now this customer already had a battery out of his old setup. So this is a full river DC 105 amp hour. But this box is designed to fit the next size up to the 120 amp hour. So it's designed for a 120 amp hour AGM or lithium battery. So we'll just place this into position now. So you'll notice in our pack, we've got our hold down clamps, so our J-bolts. They're both the same length, so it doesn't matter which one goes on which side. But part of our electrical harness is the cross bracket, so this one here. So this is our hold down clamp to lock the battery into position. So what we'll do is we'll start with our back J-bolt, because it's probably the hardest to get to, down in between the harness. So we're looking for inside the battery box. You might be able to see here. We can see our 2 lugs. So that's where we need to get our J-bolt in between those 2 lugs down there. So I'm going to start with the back one, which is probably a bit harder to see, but so I'm hooked into position there now. Now the other thing to be mindful of when we secure these batteries in is it's a good idea, you can see our MIDI fuse holder has a mount there on the mounting bracket. It's a good idea to face that away from the positive, so we want more clearance away from the positive, better to have that facing the negative. So that's why I've twisted that around there now. Okay, so I'm just going to do that up just firm enough to hold us in position. Okay, so that's going to hold us there while we do our J-bolt on this side. Okay, so what we're doing is you can see our 2 lugs down there. Just going to put the J-bolt in between the 2. Slip it in there. So I'm going on a bit of an angle to get it in, but now that it's gone in, I can flick that up and that'll hold it into position. Flick that over and our second nylock nut. We'll sit there and we can secure that one up. I'll just centralise that bracket and then I can do it up secure. Okay, so now it's time to make our electrical connections, and we'll start with our positive terminal. So we'll take that bolt out. And we've got 3 positives and 3 negatives to connect. So firstly, our one from the Redarc charger, labelled auxiliary battery, but also our positives from the 12-volt sockets here. So we're going to thread those through in a way that it's going to sit neatly. So I'm going to take these 2 through this way and our positive back across that way. Now, I like to put these on first, so the positives from our accessories, the lower current ones, and then have our highest current one making direct contact with the battery. So like that. So our 2 accessory harnesses, then our battery one, and we can do that up secure. And we can actually tighten this up now. There we go. So our positives are done, made those connections. Now we can make our negative connections. And following the same process, so we want our accessory harness negatives to be the first one that we put the bolt through. Sit them under, out the way there. Just making sure everything's sitting nicely. And then our main negative, the high current one, the one that touches the battery post. And we can go ahead and secure that one. Do that up tight. Now we can use any cable ties that we've got left over, which there will be a fair few, just to secure everything into position so that it's not going to move around. But that's sitting pretty nicely now. And then we can go and put our lid on. So now that we've made our electrical connections there, it's time to insert the fuses into our fuse holders to power up our socket. So you'll notice in the pack, we've got some 15 amp fuses. So these are spare fuses. So these are spare fuses for our Redarc that you can just set aside. And we've got 2 spare fuses for the accessory harness as well, but 2 of them will be going straight into our sockets here. So you'll notice we've got these fuse holders here. We'll place them in and you can actually see, so I've powered up the dual sockets here. We can see our voltmeters lit up, so we know we've got power to them. And then the last one is going to be our single socket at the back of the charger. The back beside the charger, so they are separately fused. Okay guys, now that we've made our electrical connections in the tub battery box, it's time to connect to our main battery up the front. So you'll notice in your kit was a MIDI fuse holder and a lead labelled main battery. So that's designed to connect to our main battery. The reason it's not already mounted in the kit is because it just makes it easier to route this cable up without our fuse holder attached. So what we're going to do now is just use an 8mm socket, remove that end of the fuse holder, connect it to the lead that we ran up to the front, and do that up tight. So using a 8mm socket, and just check the other one, make sure they're both tight. At that point we can clip that fuse holder down and even mount it into the position that we want. So I'm going to attach it to the hold down clamp here using a couple cable ties from the kit. Like so. So that's secure there now, it's not going to go anywhere. So next what we want to do is remove the 12mm nut on our positive terminal there. So just being mindful that we don't want to touch anything electrical at this point. It is a live terminal, so we just want to release that. Fully remove that nut and then bring our positive back around, make sure it's not up against our hold down clamp there, back around onto that lug and reinstall that 12mm nut. That's given us connection to our main battery. So the whole system is earthed through the mounting of the box, so we just need to get our positive up here. Do that up nice and tight. And one other thing we might want to do, just to make it all sit neat, is just take a little nick out of this. So you can see another accessory has been mounted there, and this doesn't quite sit on. So we could take a nick out for this accessory and a little section out for our accessory, and put that back down all the way, or we could just put a cable tie around that and hold it down over the positive terminal. Okay, so now that we've made all the electrical connections in our kit, it's time to test our unit. So you'll notice the Redarc charger now, we've got the A profile light flashing lightly in the background, and that means that we're in isolation mode and that we've got it set up for an AGM battery at the moment. So the first thing we want to do is start up the vehicle, and we should see our vehicle light and stage light come on either solid or flashing depending on how charged the battery is, and also our A light will come on solid. So let's do that initially. So you can hear our engine is running now, and we've got our vehicle light on, our stage light on, and our A light on, so we know we're charging from the vehicle. Another way that we can just check that in this particular setup, our customer's got a voltmeter, and we can go and see that we're seeing a high voltage there now. So it is on charge, 14.4 volts coming in. So now that we know it's charging from the vehicle, we can shut our car down. Now that our car's been shut down, we want to check that it goes into isolation mode, and that can take a varying amount of time depending on how charged our auxiliary battery is. A lot of different parameters, but it should happen eventually. So we want to see those lights go back out and just have our A light flashing again like we did initially in the isolation mode. Okay, so we can see that those lights have just gone out now. So it's back in isolation mode. So we've checked the vehicle charging, we've checked that it's isolating. Now we'll go and check our solar. Okay, so next we want to check our solar. So we're going to plug our solar panel into this port here, labeled solar input. Now this is unregulated solar. So the Redarc becomes our solar reg. This is just a 12 volt panel or blanket direct into this port. So let's plug our solar in. And then if we go and have a look at the screen, we should see our solar light on. Our stage light will be either flashing or solid, depending on our state of charge, and our A light is on. So we can tell that we're charging from solar now. So we've checked vehicle charging, we've checked solar charging, and we've checked isolation. So our system is fully installed, it's fully functioning and working. Now we can just do our finishing touches and put the lid on. So the last thing we want to do is just place our lid into position. And just line up our holes. Okay, and then just with an Allen key tool, we're just going to do up these bolts, secure our lid. Okay, so our lid's on, our battery box is fully installed, fully functioning. It's time to get touring.